Graham, so great to be with you again. Just wanted to pick up a little bit of the theme we were talking about in the workshop today with regards to right relationship and to a livable future investing. And given your long background at Procter and Gamble and in business, and just the many years you've put into thinking about these questions and writing them in Rebuild, the Economy, Leadership, and You, um, you've really synthesized so much. Could you just share a little bit about the systemic reason that why business tends towards this extractive or degenerative nature of the economy, and why does it have to be always pure competition, or what solutions or what kind of musings might you have for us?
Gladly. Thank you very much for that question, Felipe. And it's superb to be talking to you again. I always enjoy our conversations. So there are a number of reasons. As always, there's never any, or very seldom, a single smoking gun root cause that is behind everything. But there is one root cause that has only been seen over the past decade. In fact, the first paper was only published on it 7 years ago. And the key thing is that there is an assumption being made deep inside economics that doesn't hold true in normal business. Yeah. And the assumption shows up in some very simple lessons that everybody gets taught early on in their business school career. You get taught that if a business decision is a good decision to make once, then it's a good decision to repeat many times over. So, for instance, you might have a possibility of spending your week chasing after a deal. If you close the deal, your bank balance grows by 50%. If you lose the deal, your cost of sale means your bank balance decreases by 40%. And business logic says, well, if we calculate that just for 1 week, it's a 50-50 chance of growing by 50% or decreasing by 40%. On average, you should expect to grow by 5% each time you repeat that. Therefore, this is a good deal. Let's go ahead with it. And so, and yes, if you do it once, it's a good deal. In the expected outcome, you would expect that out of 100 people trying that, half of them would grow by 50%, half of them would shrink by 40%. On average, across 100 people, you get a 5% benefit. And business logic says, if you repeat this week by week, you should expect your company on average to grow by 5% per week. And if I flip to screen sharing, what that means is something like this. This on a linear vertical axis, so you don't see much change until the hockey stick really kicks in towards the end. But this is projecting your average growth rate of that kind of a deal. If I put it onto a log axis for the vertical working capital, you see here your business is growing very nicely. Now, in this particular case, it's not 5% growing per week. This is 1.34% growing per week, which is a good target because that's equivalent to your business doubling in size every year. Now, the key assumption that economists are making inside that, which is wrong, and the key assumption that economists are making is that if something is a good deal once, you repeat it. Every single business plan I have ever seen is built this way. Every single business plan says, first, look at all of your sources of uncertainty, all of the different reasons why your working capital might grow or shrink, average over all of these sources of uncertainty, and if that average is still a positive growth, extrapolate it out across your 10 years, and then you have a good business plan. Now let's see what actually happens. What you're going to see next is a situation where your business, where we actually extrapolate things through. So instead of simply, sorry, give me one moment. I need to find myself again. There we go. Right. So what we're now going to look at is a real projection of one single business week by week, actually putting in what happens in that week. Does it grow or shrink? And yes, on average across the lifetime of the business, half of the time a week, it will be a week of growth, and half the time it will be a week of decrease. And if we now look at what actually happens on a week-by-week basis in a single business, we see this. The business actually doesn't do too badly for the first year, but then it has a run of weeks where it decreases, doesn't do too badly, some decrease, and then it gets into a run where it decreases and goes bankrupt. And so you might say, okay, that's a real outlier. This is not what we should expect. This is one scenario of that business, one sequence of growth and loss weeks in a specific, or one set of growth and loss weeks in a specific sequence. So let's repeat that with different growth and loss weeks, but exactly the same business. So this is the same starting capital, the same management team, everything is the same. We're just doing a realistic projection forwards without doing this conventional averaging first and then hoping things work out. We're actually really looking at one scenario of a sequence of growth and loss weeks. If we repeat it 50 times, this is the span we get. Every single one of those businesses is heading for collapse after the 10-year period. Not one of them is anywhere near the projection that canonical business thinking gives you. This is how everybody is taught to calculate business plans at university, at business school. If they're good, they put in some kind of a tolerance calculation. They do a sensitivity analysis like that. All of this is coming about because we're taught to use a simplification that does not hold true for the dynamics of capital growth processes in business. And if you use the full equation, you get this dotted line, this dashed line as the expected outcome for a single business. And this is really at the heart of why we chew up so much financial capital to keep businesses going, why we chew up so much natural capital, nature's resources, and why we chew up so much human capital. The equations we're taught to use are systemically biased towards overestimating just how profitable a business is. And in an attempt to get this line back up to that line, we end up doing all kinds of other things. Basically, we use more resources to try and get the financial capital to grow. And this is really at the heart of what we're doing in Evolute 6 and what I would love everybody to be doing.
So help us, what's the implication for us as investors is you're seeing we're chewing up this natural capital, chewing up these other types of capital that we're not modeling for and projecting. And then even our business, we're having to add more capital in to get that growth. Like help us understand the implication for us.
Yes. So there are two key implications. The first one is once we've understood that we need to use a different equation to calculate our business plans, basically, instead of averaging first and then extrapolating forwards, we need to do a realistic scenario 50 times of each business and then do the averaging to see what the expected outcome should be. Now, it's slightly more subtle than that, but that's good enough for now and safe enough to try. So that's the first one, is let's get our calculations right and see what's actually happening. The next one is we need a net positive economy. We need a circular economy. We need a regenerative economy, whatever you want to call it. We need an economy that grows all of the capitals. And I think that we are causing as many problems, but in a different flavor, when we focus our attention on, well, what can we do with 0% return to investors? I'm all in favor of really healthy returns to investors, because the more money gets returned to investors, the more money there's available to regenerate the other capitals the next cycle. Nature is not net zero. Nature is rampantly net positive. And the key message is profit pooling. Nature follows a strategy of blended competition and collaboration. What you see here is after each scenario, the 50 different universes of the same business put 1% of their profit into a common pool that is shared out equally. That is if you have 10% profit pooling. And what this is saying is very much in line with the tithe. 10% of your salary you put into a pool for the community of the church. Only we're applying this business to business. This is exactly how societies have thrived forever, is a resource pooling system across everybody in the community, recognizing that when one person has a detrimental unpredictable in 1 week, otherwise known as bad luck, another person is likely to have good luck. And as long as everybody stays alive and in the community, everybody thrives better. And so this is really at the heart of what we're doing. The FareShares Commons company is built for stable governance in a strongly connected ecosystem of companies with some appropriate balance between competition and collaboration. And the power of that, as we know from nature and as we know from human society, is that it gives you the capacity that everybody benefits when something good happens to anybody, and everybody is buffered when something negative happens to anybody. So the whole community is still alive when the good times come.
Thank you, Graham. Such a privilege to connect with you once again. Any final words about deeper implications for how we actualize this in some of our own lives, or what next steps we can offer? You're building this ecosystem and ecology where you are today. You're potentially raising capital, you're supporting entrepreneurs. Any other pieces you want to leave us with?
I'll put one last thought in. This is directly relevant to each of our lives as individual human beings. Each of us lives one single life, one sequence of events in our life. This is what makes it, on the one hand, actually highly unhelpful to try to compare my life to somebody else's life, because you've had a completely different sequence of events from birth until now. There's no way we can compare our lives now to each other. And that's also why humanity has thrived, because we bond together into communities. It's community is not just something nice to have, it's deeply practical because it enables each of us to thrive better as individuals. And after all, that's the origin of the word company, companis, with bread, a group of people bonding together, because by bonding together as a community, you each thrive better.
Thank you so much. Mutual thriving.
Yes.